What is going on, guys? I'm xrsbuilt and welcome back to another Minecraft Bedrock tutorial video. In today's video we are in the beta preview, which does mean that everything in this video is subject to change as Mojang makes changes to the new update. However, we're going to be making a farm for this guy. So my very first iteration of the farm was this one here, and this would be one heck of a farm if it didn't have, well, bedrock bugs, of course. Now, with this still being in preview, it's hard to say whether or not they are actually going to be fixing these bugs, as they are kind of a specific bug. However, this farm would work very well if they were to fix the specific bug that is breaking it. What is that specific bug, you ask? Well, let's turn it to nighttime and spawn in some creaking. And as you can see, we turned it to nighttime and now we got a bunch of creaking spawning in, which is exactly what we want. And after a little bit of time, they are all going to find their way down into the Trident killer, and we can turn that on, and as you can see, then they are going to start taking damage. Now these guys do have a little bit of a cooldown to it. I believe it's around 5 seconds, and within that cooldown they can then summon in resin, which is not really ideal, but it works. We don't want these farms to be too overpowered, I suppose. Now you might have noticed where there is some resin that's spread to the glass. This has recently been fixed in the latest beta and preview, and the resin is no longer able to spread over to blocks that are not the pale oak. And after running this farm for some time, you can see that it is pretty backed up. However, there is one major issue, and that is all of these creaking are in the Trident killer, and they are all taking damage, but you can see that all of these creaking will only link to one of the creaking hearts, and that's basically going to only spread the resin from that one creaking heart, which is not ideal. We want all of these to spread the resin. That way we can have the resin fall down into the water stream and make a very fast farm. So yeah, what a bummer. Whenever the creaking are all clustered together like that, they're only going to connect to one single heart instead of each individual heart like a villager would connect to their own workstation. Hopefully Mojang fixes this soon. So the next iteration of the creaking farm was making it a lot smaller, since we did not need all of that extra space and components because, well, it was only going to spread to one area anyways. With that being said, I could spread out all of the creaking and have their hearts next to them. That way they would all individually link to their own creaking, but then that farm is going to be absolutely huge and going to have to rely on a unreliable Trident killer. Unless you want to load it up with 20 of these bad boys, but then you're talking a lot of room and a whole lot of materials. So the idea behind this was to utilize as much of the area for the resin to spread as possible. So we basically have 9 places here where the resin could spread, whereas the resin really doesn't like to spread on the heart, but it is possible technically. And then we have another 9 on this side. However, after running this farm and doing some more studying with this new mechanic, it seems that the max amount of the resin that is able to disperse during one damage of the creaking is a max of 3. So I've done a little playing around and I was able to find that we can eliminate most of these spawning spots without having any negative effects, which means once again this farm was entirely too big and we could make it a lot smaller, which is exactly what I did. So since the resin will only spread to a max of 3 blocks at a time, we have 3 blocks on this side that it can spread to and another 3 blocks on this side as well, which would make a max of 6. Now, thanks to the resin spreading mechanic, it doesn't seem like pulsing these pistons more than they need to be pulsed really has a effect on the resin spreading, because with a single farm in about an hour, we are still getting this amount here, which is about 600 or 700 per hour. And if we go ahead and activate this farm, I can show you how it works. Basically have the creaking spawn in here like you saw on the previous designs. It falls down into the Trident killer where it gets underneath the block where it cannot jump, and then this Grindstone is actually holding it to where it can continuously take damage from that Trident, and then the Trident killer is going to go around and around, and then as soon as he is able to take damage, you will see particles, which will then spread the resin onto the blocks, and you might see some glitchy particles here and there due to the pistons pushing into it, but that's just regular bedrock stuff. However, if you come down here and you break some of these, you can actually see that this actually drops quite a bit of resin pretty quick. So yeah, a pretty cool farm, and I'm going to show you how to build it. Let's get into it. So just like any other tutorial, you are going to want to make sure that this is chunk aligned. That way I can guarantee the reliability and the performance of this farm. You are also going to want to build this a ways up off of the ground. That way you don't have the creaking spawning down there out of your farm. And furthermore, the material list is going to be down in the description as it always is. So make sure that you check out the description down below. That way you have all of the materials necessary to build this farm. So we're going to start off building my high-speed trident killer, or at least part of it. We're going to be placing down a permanent block here, a temp block here, a permanent block here, here, and here. Another temp block here and a permanent block here. Then you're going to remove this temporary block and this temporary block, where you should have something that looks like this. You're going to go to the left hand side. We're going to extend this out with a permanent block, a temporary block, permanent, and remove that temporary block. Then you're going to do the same thing here. You're going to extend this out with a permanent block, temporary block, permanent, and remove that temporary block. Next, normally we would place down a permanent block here and a permanent block here. However, these two blocks here are going to be replaced with hoppers. So what we want to do is grab another temporary block and place a temporary block here and here. We're going to remove these two blocks, and then we're going to place down a hopper on this block facing straight down. And then we're going to place a hopper facing into that hopper, just like so. And you should have that. So you're basically replacing these two blocks with hoppers. Then you can remove these two temporary blocks. Once you've done that, you can grab some more solid blocks. We're going to place in 4 blocks here for a floor. And then you're going to stand in the middle with some pistons and place a piston here, a piston here, a piston here, and a piston here. So you want to grab your redstone dust, torch, repeater, and also your levers. Start by grabbing your redstone dust and go to the front of the trident killer here. We're going to place in dust here and here. We're going to place in dust on this block here, on this hopper here. And then once we get over here, we're going to place in a redstone torch down here. Grab your repeaters. We're going to place down a repeater here. That's going to start the clock. You can place down a lever here and turn it on. Grab your repeaters once again. We're going to place in another repeater here, another repeater here, and another repeater on this hopper. All of these repeaters need to be on the standard default 1 tick delay. Now, if you go ahead and unpower this lever, you can see the trident killer is going to start up and move very quickly, which is exactly what we want. So next, you're going to want to grab some redstone dust, glass, hoppers, pistons, pale oak logs, creaking heart, and solid blocks. We're going to go to the back of the trident killer where the hopper is. And on the back of this right hand piston, we're going to place down 3 pistons here, one here, and one down here. And then on the side of this hopper here, we're going to place in a piston here, a piston on top, and a piston on top of that one. So you should have all 6 of the pistons just like this. Next, you're going to take some temporary blocks, place down a temporary block here and a temporary block underneath. Remove this temporary block and then place in a pale oak log here, a creaking heart, and a pale oak log here. Now, if it is nighttime, you can remove this. You don't have to have this right yet. That way you're not having the creaking spawn up here in survival mode, which would not be good at all, especially this far up in the air. However, because I'm in creative, it's not that big of a deal, so we can remove this temporary block. And then we are going to go over here. We're going to place in a solid block here, a temporary block here with a solid block here. Remove this temporary block and place a glass block right here. Then you can take your redstone dust and stair the redstone dust up like this and over top of this piston. And then on the other side here, we are essentially going to do the same thing. We're going to place in a solid block here, a solid block here, a glass block here, and then stair up the redstone dust just like so. Do not place redstone dust on that piston. And then this block here will power the redstone dust as soon as that's turned on. So once we turn this on, it should push those blocks into place. Just like so. Except I forgot that the recent change made the creaking heart to where it's an immovable object, which means you're going to have to strain yourself and break this one and then put it here manually, which is a true shame. Next, you're going to grab you some trapdoors. Now, I like the acacia because it's orange and it goes with the vibe, and I think all of these green blocks. Did I just say green blocks? No, Built, they're orange. They're literally like the farthest thing from green. So all of these orange blocks, I think, just screams that this is a creaking farm. And I absolutely love how these new blocks look. So we're just going to place in a temporary block here, a temporary block here. Then we're going to place in a trapdoor here and a trapdoor here. We're going to remove both of these temporary blocks before we turn that on. Then we're going to crouch and we're going to jump and place 2 more here. And we're going to crouch here and jump and place 2 more here as well. Then once you're at a safe place, you can left click on all of these and flip them up. That way it holds in all of that beautiful resin. Don't want to lose any of that. And then we can go down below and work on the storage system. So what we want to do is place down a hopper right on this hopper here. Then we can make a hopper going into that one. And then on this side, we can make a hopper going into this one as well, if it does not do the bedrock glitch. You know, eventually I will get this hopper placed. Okay, so once you eventually get all of the hoppers placed, it should look just like this, and then you can start placing in all of your storage. So place it in just like, come on hitboxes, I love Bedrock Edition. So then you can place it in like this, and then feel free to stagger this down however far you want. Since all of the drops are under here, you're going to be pulling all of the materials from here instead of actually pulling the materials from underneath the Trident Killer like you conventionally would. Next, you're going to want to grab you some buttons. We're going to place in buttons all along here, and then we're also going to place a button on the top here and also on the bottom here just to keep the resin from spreading down here. Remember, with the recent update, it's not going to spread anywhere that's not a pale oak log or some type of variant of it. Then we are going to grab our solid blocks and also our glass. We are also going to grab our grindstone as well. We're going to start building this Trident Killer up like we normally would. So we're going to place in glass here and here, here and here, here and here, and here and here. Then we're going to bring this up another 2 layers. Now once you're at this level, you're going to place in some solid blocks in these areas here, and then place in some glass blocks in these areas here. On the 2 sides that are closest to the hoppers and the pale oak logs back here, you're going to place in 2 solid blocks just like this. And then you're going to grab your grindstone, and on the right hand side here, you're going to place in a grindstone facing just like this. It's very important that it's orientated like this, and it needs to be on that block there. The reason for this is so the Creaking can fall down into the Trident Killer. The Pistons will push it around under this block. Since he's 3 tall, he will not be able to jump, and then he will be aligned up against the side of that grindstone. Next, you're going to grab your glass, and the only thing left to do is to surround this by 2 layers of glass. So you're going to build this across here, over top of the rest of the farm here, all the way around here, and make a square like that. And then we're going to do it once again all the way around. And then you're going to take 2 buttons and place a button here, a button here. And then once you're ready to place in the water, you're going to place a stair here, orientated just like this, and then also a stair here orientated just like this. You're going to waterlog both of those. It's going to push everything this direction, and then it's going to find its way into the Trident Killer. The very last thing that you're going to do is grab you some tridents. They don't have to have impelling on them. I don't believe that it's any type of benefit to have a impelling trident or any type of water in this Trident Killer due to the way that the mob currently works. If this changes in the future, I'll be sure to let you know. With this specific farm, you also don't need more than 1 trident. I'm just so used to throwing 4 of them in there, so we can go ahead and turn that farm on to knock those tridents down where they need to be, and we can turn it off, and we should be good to fire this thing up. Now you might notice that we have some redstone dust and stuff. The Creaking cannot spawn on any of the redstone or the buttons. They also cannot spawn on any of the glass. So instead of having the buttons here, that way we can actually keep all of our resin drops in here. We can replace that button with just 3 pieces of glass here, and we should be good to fire this thing up. So let's set it to midnight and see if we get a Creaking spawning where he's supposed to spawn and not where he's not supposed to spawn. And after a few moments, he should be spawning in. I believe I have to be closer. And after a few moments, you can see the Creaking spawned in, and he went straight down to the Trident Killer. And if that Trident Killer was on, he would be taking damage. So let's flip that on. He's going to be placed into his little holding cell there and nudged up against that so he could take damage. And as you can see, it's starting to make the particle effects go to the Creaking heart, which means we're going to start getting the resin. Now it's been about 20 seconds of running this farm, and I'll talk over the screen, that way you can see just how fast this farm actually does produce the resin. Now given it's not going to be as fast as one of the huge, absolutely insane farms that have been popping up on tutorials for the resin farms, but for something simple that you're just looking to use some resin blocks here and there, or if you want this thing running in the background while you're at your base, this thing is going to be more than enough for the regular player. And as you guys know, I will continue to further develop these farms and make them the best that I possibly can. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to drop those down in the comment section below. And until next time, I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.